If you're an existing Citrix customer, chances are your licenses are up for renewal sometime sooner or later. If that's the case, then you probably want to go over the options that you have, because a lot has happened in the EUC space. Acquisition, spin-off, you name it. So it's not crazy to look at the options, what is out there, what can it do for me, and how can it help my business? And that is exactly the reason why we're here today, to discuss one of the options that's out there, Omnissa Horizon. We've dubbed it the Journey to Omnissa Horizon. Sander, you're here to help me today. Welcome.
Hey man, thanks for letting me be here.
Good to have you. So, for those that are unaware of ITQ, we've been around for almost 25 years now. We started out in professional services, expanded to managed services, and had, for quite a long time, had a big focus on everything VMware. Now, obviously, Omnissa is included in that, and other parties in the ecosystem. But we've been around for a long, long time and got experience in the entire ecosystem. But a new kid on the block.
A shining new company. What was the joke that you made? I'm a 2-year-old company with a 20-year-old face.
Yeah, well, basically, you're also been around for 25 years, right? But in a 2-year-old body.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we were always part of VMware, of course, as the end-user computing division there. But as you all know, VMware was acquired by Broadcom, and we already pretty soon knew that we weren't going to be part of that deal. So we were a separate division under Broadcom. As the EUC division, but in July the white smoke was there and we formed our own company, Omnissa, a standalone new company. However, we do have 26,000 customers and 20 years of experience with all leading EUC solutions.
Yeah, so it's new face, but familiar story, basically.
Exactly.
Familiar company.
It's not the first time we're here.
Absolutely. It won't be the last either, I think.
No.
So if we look at some of the reasons that customers, and there are a lot of customers, but a lot of organizations as well, that are going through these questions. One of them is cost-driven. If you look up on Google, there's a lot of noise about how Citrix handles renewals, what they do with the ecosystem, and I'm not judging, let's be clear about that, but it is something that we see and hear a lot. Otherwise, it's technology driven. It doesn't have to be Citrix related, but it's probably part of the stack that an organization uses, like Windows 10, going end of life, Ivanti Workspace Control, you name it. And it could be innovation driven. You see the stack being expanded beyond VDI to modern endpoint management. And there are parties out there that actually offer the full set of solutions. So those are some of the reasons that organizations are making these changes. And as I mentioned, right, it could be renewal related, cost increases, different terms and conditions that might not align with your business, technology driven, products end of life, Windows 10 is going end of life very soon this time. Ivanti Workspace Control, often used at least in the Netherlands in conjunction with Citrix, and as well as AppV, 2026 as well, I believe. So there's a lot of moving parts in that stack. And it could be innovation driven as well. Companies that have been using VDI for quite a long time slowly transition into the modern managed devices. They want to develop new use cases. Could be VR related as well for companies that have been doing modern managed devices as well. So we see a lot of that in that area. Anything you like to add in that, Sander?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with stating that Omnissa is more of the broad platform approach, right? It's not the Citrix VDI isn't just the end all and be all of all of your environment. We have different use cases for different situations. Yeah. So bring out the broad support for all endpoint devices, even head out into the weird and wonderful like VR and AR and the handsets in your supermarket. Omnissa can handle it all.
So talking about the platform, we probably have some people watching this video and they say like, what is Horizon? What does Omnissa bring to the table?
Yeah.
Anything you'd like to add to that or like to elaborate on that?
Yeah. So the Horizon platform is obviously our platform for VDI. That's how most people know it, a one-on-one connection for your user to your desktop. However, we also do RDS, so remote desktop services, where we have a server offering sessions to multiple users. We can also do that from a Windows 10 or 11 VDI, and we do published applications. So run the application as if it's running locally on your machine, but it's actually running in the data center.
Right.
Yeah, and I think one of the most important parts of this is that it's not really that different. It's just a lot of terminology that is changing, but the concepts are still the same. So when we're talking to Citrix administrators, they like to talk about things like provisioning services and machine creation services. Well, we offer our desktops through linked clones or instant clones. We talk about desktop pools and application pools. Whereas in the Citrix terminology, it's machine catalog and delivery group. But it's not all that different, right? We still use pretty much basically all of the things that are required for your Citrix environment. We have those in place as well.
Yeah, so it's still brokering, display protocols, image management.
Yeah.
Hypervisor, it's still all there.
Yeah.
It just has a different label.
It's just different labels, and maybe it's learning new tools, right?
Sure.
That's basically the big thing.
The UI is different. Some
Yep.
UIs might be consolidated, different color schemes, you name it.
Especially now, since we brightened everything up.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in essence, you're still doing the same. So you're running your app delivery through app volumes instead of app V or app layering with Citrix. So you use not Ivanti for your user environment management. We do that with Dynamic Environment Manager. So there's just different terminology to get used to, but it is similar parts, but it's also more simplified, I like to believe. Okay. So for example, our one-stop shop is the connection server, yep. which is in one place. The broker, the license server, the help desk tool lives there. So it takes a lot of these different roles that you're used to in your Citrix environments, but we get them all in one convenient location for you.
How convenient. No, that sounds good. And if I can relate to that. If you look at how simplified the stack is, it really helps. And that's something that we hear from former Citrix customers as well.
Yeah.
They like how simplified the platform is and how it helps them be more effective
yeah.
in a day-to-day operation.
Yeah, and it's really easy to scale it out to larger environments. We can easily break out into all of the cloud providers as well. So yeah, the Omnissa Horizon platform can handle your situation.
Yeah, so it already says it on screen, right? Similar parts, different technology or terminology, sorry. And this just focuses on kind of the like-for-like comparison between Citrix virtual apps and desktops and Omnissa Horizon. But there is more to that, right? Once yeah. you replace the brokering and the connection protocols and things like that, you can innovate as well if you'd like.
Yeah. Especially
in the realm of applications, because who doesn't love applications?
Who doesn't love applications? No. Yeah. So the way we used to do everything is put everything into one large image, one big pile of data that wasn't very performative, and it didn't give us a lot of control.
No.
But yeah, the way that we approach it is that we layer everything. So we start out with the operating system. It can be Windows, it can be something else, and on top of that, we deliver our applications through app volumes. Now, app volumes are basically virtual hard disks that we attach to the operating system, and those contains the files for all of your for the application. So it's the files, it's the registry. And because we have the App Volumes agent as a layer in between, it reads to the operating system as if it's installed locally. So the files are in C program files, it uses the local registry. And because we only capture files and registry paths, we have 99% compatibility with all applications. So there aren't any applications that we can think of that you can't package in App Volumes.
No, except for the crazy things like antivirus that integrate too deeply in the operating system. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, no, exactly. And we used to do this in one big app stack. That was the old approach for App Volumes, where you decided I have all of these applications that apply to all of my company, and I have a few applications that apply to specific groups, and you had to figure out what works with what, and if you try to update something, the rest falls over.
Yep.
Now we do everything separate. So you can still have multiple applications in one package, but it is the ideal situation that you update. You have one package for Chrome, you have one package for Adobe and Notepads and Teams and all that sort of thing. So yeah, it's nice and separate, and these hard disks aren't isolated, so they can also interact with each other.
Yeah, so it's an important differentiator to mention out. It's not isolation, it's just a way to deliver package applications.
Yeah.
And in that, to be more flexible, because you can change, update a single package independently of the rest
Yeah.
And basically on the fly if you want to.
Yeah, exactly. And have one group test out the new version, and once it's applied the new version, then everyone gets it as soon as they log off. So there's no interruption of service. And we can attach these app volumes as the system boots, as it is at logon, but we can also use it on demand. So as soon as the user clicks on the icon, then the application is attached, so you get a faster log on into your session to get your daily started.
And it's not exclusive to Omnissa virtual desktops,
no.
right? It is compatible with physical, it is compatible with other virtual desktop solutions out there, so.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, we really believe in package once and deploy everywhere. So if you want to use this on Horizon or even on your Citrix environment, send it out to a physical laptop through Workspace ONE or another third-party vendor, or even run it in a cloud desktop, you get one single packaging action for your application. So that saves us all a lot of time and headaches.
Kind of like the Switzerland of applications.
Yes, we are the Switzerland of applications.
That's good.
I love that. Yeah.
So we kind of covered the why, right? The reasons why companies could explore other options. We've explored one of the options. Now let's have a look at how to achieve that.
Yeah, and you guys know a thing or two about that.
We have some experience when it comes to running projects like this. So traditionally, we do an assessment. We inventory what we're dealing with, the number of users, the number of desktops, the types of images, the hardware. That takes up a lot of time. We use that information to create a solution design. Then, once we get the sign-off on the design and all the other project-related documents, we move to the implementation and ultimately the migration and adoption.
Yeah.
The thing is that if one of the reasons is that you're up for a license renewal, that's going to take a lot of time. It's going to be a big project, it's going to be complex, complicated, and probably time that we don't have in that sense. So we came up with a different approach. We do the design and implement basically at the same time. So we still need to gather some input because every company is different, every customer is different. But we take a standardized design, implement that, and then quickly move on to the migrate and adopt because it saves a lot of time. And ultimately, at the end, there's room for innovation. Things like that you mentioned with app volumes. We don't try to move it to the front. Typically, that's what you want to do with a project. You want to bring innovation as well. We believe we don't have the time for that, so we move that to a later stage. And if we look at how that will look if we zoom in more, and this is actually part of a plan that we presented to the Izala ziekenhuis in Zwolle. So it's not the middle of the Netherlands, it's not the eastern part of the Netherlands, it's kind of in between. I believe they have around 7,000 employees and they underwent this journey. I do want to mention that they did a lot of work themselves, which is really impressive. I think that emphasizes on the point that you made that it's different technology, but it still relates to the same concepts because they implemented Horizon themselves with help of their partner ecosystem. But it was a project that they ran on themselves. They made the decision to move this way themselves. But ultimately, they had the platform up and running, and then they were like, okay, how are we going to get us to the last part? How are we going to get to the finish line? So that's what we presented to them. And if you look at it like this, it looks simple, right? You have Citrix, you have Horizon, you just need to
go there.
Yeah, exactly.
You're done.
But as we already mentioned, there is more that comes into play, right? You have, in this case, Ivanti, you have Windows 10, you have AppV, and you can incorporate things like app volumes in them as well. So what we did is we broke that up in some bite-sized chunks related to the different deadlines that they were dealing with. So one of that was the Citrix renewal. That was up in December last year, 2024. Well, obviously we have the Windows 10 end of support. They had a challenge with Office as well. And ultimately, the AppV and Ivanti Workspace Control going end of life. So those were three different deadlines that we had to deal with, and we made sure that the approach that we presented aligned with those different deadlines to keep it manageable. So we have 4 different phases, and basically the third and the fourth are optional. We have a different scenario for that, but if you look at the first one, we implement Workspace ONE Access. It's kind of like the front door for your employees. And what we did was we implemented that and we integrated the existing Citrix desktops into that, or at least that was what we proposed. Reason for that is simple. Your employees can get acquainted with the new look and feel, and they already know the entry point. So once you have the Horizon desktop available, they just click on a different icon.
Yeah.
It makes it a lot easier for them to make that move. And next to that, we kind of did a rip and replace of everything Citrix in the existing image. So we opened up the existing image, which is typically something that we don't recommend, but in this case...
You want to rebuild a new image, right?
Yeah, you want to start from scratch, but time didn't allow for that. So we opened up the existing image, we converted it, and we took out all the Citrix components. We replaced that with your components from Omnissa Horizon, and what the customer then suggested is to just test the most critical applications. Instead of going through everything, because ideally you want to test everything, but again, time didn't permit that. And ultimately, if you look at wave 3 and wave 4, you could separate that out. So you move Windows 10 to Windows 11, change Office 2016 to the new Office Click to Run or 2019. And then in wave 4, you have a look at volumes and DEM. So that's when you really start to innovate.
Yeah.
Or depending on how things go, you combine those last two phases. So in that case, it becomes a bigger part, but you basically take out, or you take all the new stuff, like add volumes, like DEM, and combine that in your new Windows 11 test image.
Yeah.
That means you need to go through testing as well, but instead of doing that in basically 2 runs, you now combine it in a single run, depending on how much time you have.
Yeah. So one thing that we always see a lot as well, obviously renew the front end to use Workspace ONE Access, so they've got a nice tile that they can click on with single sign-on into that familiar Citrix desktop that they're using. In the meantime, we are installing the Dynamic Environment Manager agent, which is taking a look at profiles and user settings, and we put that into a observer mode, so that it is taking into account, it's creating its own file structure for how that profile is being used by the Citrix user. They don't notice a thing about it, but as soon as you can make the change to the Horizon desktop and DEM kicks in, they get the profile that they're used to. They get all of the settings that they're already used to. So the very important cat photo on the desktop, that is still present, and the position of the dock and everything, that's what they already get. So it makes it a really smooth transition if you can plan it out and take the time.
Yeah, and don't underestimate the value of a personalized background picture, right? So,
exactly.
No, that definitely makes sense. So, tiny spoiler, this is a plan that we presented. The customer took on a version of that. The big spoiler is they made their deadline of December 2024. So again, huge applause to Izala itself because of the work that they did. And we were fortunate enough to support them with this.
Yeah.
They will be joining us soon to tell their own story about their why, what they did, what they learned, because obviously in a project like this, there are always lessons to be learned. So I'm really looking forward to that, for them to share their story. Absolutely. If we just look at it from a technical perspective, because this was a high-level project approach, we have a couple of moving parts, and this kind of relates to the table that you've shown a couple of slides back.
Yeah.
So these are basically the products that we're talking about, right? So in wave 1, we implement Workspace ONE Access, which is kind of the counterpart to the Citrix NetScaler. And obviously there's always a feature comparison going on, and sure, we'll look into that. But in addition to that, we have a small change, which is vSphere for desktop moving to VVF for VDI.
Yeah.
And we didn't even touch upon that, but vSphere for desktop is no longer a thing.
Correct.
So if you're running Citrix on vSphere, you need to either move to Xen Server or buy VCF licenses from Broadcom.
Yeah, and VCF licenses are licensed by the core. So, what do our workloads love more than anything? Yeah. It's cores, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, and that's why we struck a deal with Broadcom as we spun off, that we have a multi-year deal, and then we're talking really long time deal that we can still deliver the underlying hypervisor layer. So VVF contains vSphere, vCenter, and vSAN. Do check to see if all of the requirements are met. Yeah. But yeah, it's probably the most value for money deal that we can offer, and it's all in Horizon.
Yeah, and this is a big one for customers.
Yeah.
It's hard to quantify that, but it's definitely a big one. So it looks like it's a product change in this. It's basically just a license change, especially if you're already running vSphere, but it's good to mention it. Now, well, if you look at wave 2, you see that the brokering changes to Horizon, the image management changes from PVS to Omnissa Instant Clones, which is something that we can talk about for quite a long time, but we'll probably waste up too much.
It delivers the desktop really fast. That's all you need to know.
Almost instantly, right?
Yeah.
And then we move the other parts. So that means that we take Windows 10, move it to Windows 11. We take application delivery, move it to app volumes, and then Ivanti Workspace Control to DEM, using the learning mode that you mentioned.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that means that you've reached your destination. It is a journey after all.
Yeah.
And that means that you get to the entire stack in a phased approach.
Yeah.
Manageable.
Exactly.
I
I love the approach with waves, that we're taking the time and being realistic about what's possible, what do we need to do now, and what can we innovate on later.
Yeah, it is a big change, right? Even if you put it in these smaller chunks, it is still a big change. You need to have your entire organization on board. It affects your daily operations for your employees, it affects the daily operations for IT, and you want to make as minimum impact as possible. Yeah. And I think that this approach really allows for that, especially if you look at the time frame that Izala managed to go through the last part of the journey in like 6 months. So.
Yeah, it's almost as if EUC is the heart of every organization. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. It is.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one thing, of course, as a Omnissa pre-sales, I often meet with Citrix administrators who might be doing the same thing for a very long time and might see it as a hurdle to get over, to start learning a new technology. But I think the most important takeaway is that the core of what you're doing doesn't change. You're still managing virtual desktops, you're still delivering applications. It's just the tools that change. And something that we can always know is that we can learn quite easily, especially if it is a smooth transition like this. So you haven't touched on this in your wave approach, but one of the most important parts is bring the organization along with you and make sure that they're up to date with what they're all doing, making sure that they're learning on the job. Because in the end, you don't want to be the new Horizon administrator for Izala, right? So, yeah.
No, that's absolutely true. Adoption is definitely a vital part to this. Communication up front, taking everyone through the journey, explaining why you're doing things, that always helps. And also making it as easy as possible. Yeah. And I think, again, that, well, the quote is definitely true. Izala has proven that by doing this basically a lot by themselves, right? They implemented a new solution. They did it successfully. They did the migration. And sure, they have a good partner ecosystem, which always helps. But ultimately, they're the ones behind the buttons. Yeah. They did the hard work. They did the lifting. And yeah.
And exactly. And if you can do Citrix, you can do Horizon as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That should have been the slogan. No, and I think that it is important to mention that, and it might sound cheesy, but if our customers don't succeed, we don't either. Every organization is unique. The same can be said about this journey. We took some common solutions that are part of someone's Citrix stack. Could be that you're using something else. And I think that is one of the key takeaways. And if customers that are on this journey, they are at the point where they need to go through their options. If you found this video interesting, we'd love to talk to you. We love to look at what your situation is, what this can mean for you, how the transition would look, because again, every organization is unique, and I think that getting to a successful transition or getting to a successful solution that impacts your business in a positive way, that is the biggest change that we can make together, and that is how we think that we can be successful.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's it for today. We already kind of spoiled it, right? There is more content on the way. We have Izala coming soon. We'll have blog posts. We might even do more videos. But that is for today. Sander, I'd like to thank you for being here today.
Always a pleasure, man.
Good to know. Thank you for watching. Until next time, if you have any questions, if you found this interesting, reach out to us. We'd be happy to talk to you. Take care.